Nero Wolfe and the Cigarette Factory. It was a Wednesday morning in late April when trouble arrived, wrapped in cellophane and tied with a silk ribbon the color of dried blood. I was at my desk in the office, typing up Wolfe's Orchid records, thrilling stuff about Cattleya mossiae, needing an extra degree of humidity when the doorbell rang. Through the one-way glass panel I could see a woman on the stoop, late 30s maybe, wearing a charcoal suit that looked expensive and a hat with a veil that made her features swim like something underwater. Caesar, who'd been dozing by the hall radiator, lifted his massive head. His ears went forward, but he didn't growl. That meant visitor, not threat. The other 4 Dobermans were elsewhere in the brownstone. Mars probably upstairs near Wolfe's room, Apollo making his rounds, Minerva in her usual spot by the library corridor, and Diana somewhere near the kitchen, hoping Fritz would drop something edible. I opened the door. Yes? She thrust a rectangular package at me, about the size of a cigar box but flatter. For Nero Wolfe, tell him Claudine says the fire was no accident. Her voice was husky, strained. Tell him to look at the 7th. Before I could ask what 7th, she was descending the steps. I watched her reach the sidewalk and turn west, walking fast. A black sedan that had been idling at the curb pulled away with her, and they were gone. Caesar nosed the package. I pulled it back. Not for you, Your Majesty. The box was wrapped in brown paper, professionally done, with Wolfe's name written in fountain pen. Good penmanship, European style, no return address. I hefted it. Light. I shook it gently. Something shifted inside with a soft rattle. I took it to the office and set it on Wolfe's desk. It was 10:40. He'd be down from the plant rooms in 20 minutes, which gave me time to run it through the mental checklist. Could it explode? Unlikely. Could it contain something lethal? Possibly. Should I open it? Definitely. I slit the paper with my penknife and found an elegant box, cream-colored with gold lettering, Les Fumées Byzantines, importé de Turquie. I knew a little French from my time dodging bullets in Europe, and this translated to Byzantine smokes, imported from Turkey. The box was sealed with wax. I broke the seal and lifted the lid. Inside were 20 cigarettes, each individually wrapped in tissue paper, arranged in 2 neat rows. They smelled like exotic trouble, cardamom, clove, maybe something darker. Tucked beneath them was a small card, cream stock, with a message written in the same elegant hand. The 7th reveals what smoke conceals. I lifted out the 7th cigarette from the left. It felt different, heavier. I unwrapped the tissue carefully. The cigarette was stained. Not tobacco stain, blood. Dried brownish red, unmistakable. And there was something else inside the tissue paper. A tiny strip of microfilm, barely visible. I held it up to the desk lamp. Too small to read without magnification, but I could make out what looked like columns of numbers. That's when I heard the elevator descending. Wolfe was coming down. He entered at 11 sharp, as always, a mountain in motion, and crossed to his desk. He wore a yellow shirt today that made him look like a prosperous bumblebee. He glanced at the cigarette box, then at me. What is that? Trouble, probably. Hand-delivered by a woman named Claudine who said to tell you the fire was no accident, and to look at the 7th. I indicated the blood-stained cigarette I'd unwrapped and laid on his blotter. The 7th came with accessories. Wolfe lowered himself into his custom chair, which protested faintly despite its reinforced construction. He picked up the cigarette with his thumb and forefinger, examined it, sniffed it, and set it down as if it had offended his orchids. Byzantine cigarettes. Turkish tobacco, hand-rolled, probably in Izmir. They ceased production in 1948, when the factory burned. He looked at the blood. This is fresh enough to have protein adhesion. 3 days old, perhaps 4. There's also this. I handed him the microfilm strip. He held it to the light, squinted, and put it down. Fetch the magnifier. I did. We huddled over the strip together. Well, I huddled. Wolfe loomed. Under magnification, the microfilm showed a ledger page. Dates, names, dollar amounts. The dates ran from February through March of this year. The amounts were substantial, thousands of dollars per entry. The names meant nothing to me. Royce, Derner, Parr, Kellerman, Storch. Interesting, Wolfe murmured, but not sufficient to warrant disrupting my schedule. She said the fire was no accident. Fires rarely are. He picked up his current book, something about Balkan history, and opened it. The matter does not concern us. I should mention that this is Wolfe's standard opening position. Reject everything until forced to do otherwise. It's like a cat refusing to come when called. Eventually the cat comes, but only after establishing that it's making an independent decision. Right, I said. So I'll just tell Inspector Cramer about the blood-stained cigarette and the cryptic message when he inevitably shows up asking questions. Wolfe's eyes didn't leave his book. You will do no such thing. Then we're taking the case. We are taking nothing. We are merely observing. Translation: he was hooked but wouldn't admit it yet. The doorbell rang again. Through the glass, I could see Inspector Cramer's bulky silhouette, and behind him Sergeant Pearlie Stebbins, looking like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. Caesar was already at the door, tail wagging slightly. He knew Cramer. They had an understanding. Cramer brought the scent of street crime and bad coffee, which Caesar found interesting, and in return, Caesar didn't remove Cramer's leg. I opened up. Inspector, Sergeant, what a delightful surprise. Cramer stumped in without waiting for an invitation, spotted Caesar, and nodded at him. Morning, big guy. Then to me, where's Wolfe? In the office, pretending to read. Cramer went past me, and I followed. Pearlie stayed in the hall with Caesar, which was probably wise. Mars had appeared at the top of the stairs, and Mars was less forgiving than Caesar about territorial incursions. In the office, Cramer stood in front of Wolfe's desk and pulled something from his coat pocket, a charred, partially intact cigarette pack. He dropped it on the blotter next to the Byzantine cigarettes. You want to tell me about these? Cramer demanded. Wolfe looked up slowly, his expression suggesting Cramer had just interrupted something vastly more important than murder. About what? These cigarettes. Same brand, same fancy Turkish label. We found this pack at a crime scene this morning. Man named Bertram Kellerman, shot twice in the chest, found in his apartment on East 73rd. His wallet was there, his watch, his money. But his office files were gone, and this pack of cigarettes was on his desk, opened, with one missing. Cramer pointed at the pack on Wolfe's desk. You want to explain why you've got an unopened box of the same brand? I received it this morning. A gift. From who? A woman who did not leave her full particulars. Cramer's face was turning the color of old brick. Wolfe, I've been doing this job for 23 years, and I can smell when you're neck deep in something. Kellerman was the former owner of the Byzantine cigarette factory in Queens. The place burned down 6 weeks ago. Arson suspected but never proved. He'd been getting threats, and now he's dead. And you've got a box of cigarettes from his factory. He leaned forward. What are you into? Wolfe sighed. I am into page 47 of a rather fascinating account of Montenegrin tribal customs. You are interrupting. There's blood on that cigarette. Cramer had spotted it. Observant, I said. Where'd it come from? Wolfe set down his book with elaborate patience. I do not know. As I said, the package was delivered this morning by a woman who identified herself only as Claudine. She instructed me to examine the 7th cigarette. I have done so. It contained biological material, and this. He indicated the microfilm. The strip appears to be a financial record. I have not investigated further because the matter does not concern me. It concerns you now, Cramer growled. Kellerman's name is on that microfilm, isn't it? It appears so. Then you're coming downtown to make a statement. I am not. I am remaining here to tend to my orchids at 4 o'clock, as I do every day without fail. If you wish to discuss this matter, you may do so now, in my office, or you may leave and return with a warrant, which will consume 6 hours of your time and accomplish nothing. They stared at each other. Caesar, who'd wandered into the office, sat down next to Wolfe's desk and yawned. The yawn seemed to diffuse things. Cramer slumped into the red leather chair. All right, tell me everything. So I did, with Wolfe occasionally adding details. When I finished, Cramer was gnawing his unlit cigar. He'd given up smoking 3 years ago, but still carried them as oral security blankets, and looking thoughtful. This Claudine description. I gave him one. 5'6", slim build, dark hair probably, couldn't tell much through the veil, expensive clothes, moved like someone who knew how to handle herself. Could be Claudine Reeve, Cramer said. She was Kellerman's assistant, ran the office side of the factory, disappeared 2 weeks ago, right after someone tried to grab her outside her apartment. We've been looking for her. Perhaps you should look harder, Wolfe suggested. Yeah, thanks for the advice. Cramer stood. I'm taking the cigarettes and the microfilm as evidence. You are not, Wolfe said flatly. Those items were delivered to me, not to you. If you wish to examine them, you may do so here, now, under my observation, or you may obtain a warrant. Another staring contest. Cramer lost this one too. Fine, but I want photographs of the microfilm and copies of anything you figure out from it. And if this Claudine Reeve contacts you again, you call me immediately. If it seems advisable. Wolfe. Inspector, let us not pretend. You suspect Kellerman's death is connected to his factory's destruction. You suspect financial impropriety was involved. You suspect this woman Claudine Reeve knows something material. You have no leads, no witnesses, and no evidence beyond a charred cigarette pack. You need assistance. I, on the other hand, need nothing. If we are to establish a working arrangement, you will accommodate my eccentricities, or you will fumble alone in the dark. Cramer's jaw worked. Finally, keep me informed. Archie will liaison. Which meant I'd do all the legwork while Wolfe sat home moving orchids around and drinking beer. Standard operating procedure. After Cramer and Pearlie left, I returned to the office. Wolfe was studying the microfilm again, his eyes half closed. Are we taking the case? I asked. We are exploring possibilities. Which means yes. Which means I am curious about how Kellerman's name appears on a ledger dated 2 weeks after his factory burned down, and how that ledger came to be concealed in a blood-stained cigarette. He looked up. Call Saul. We require information about the Byzantine cigarette factory, its owner, its employees, and the circumstances of its destruction. Also, find out everything available about Claudine Reeve. And Fred and Ori? Not yet. One competent operative should suffice for preliminary inquiries. I got Saul Panzer on the phone and gave him the assignment. Saul has a memory like a recording device and connections throughout New York that would make a mob boss jealous. If anyone could dig up the factory's dirty laundry, it was him. After I hung up, Wolfe said, "The blood troubles me." It should. It usually means someone's been hurt. Precisely. The question is whether Claudine Reeve was injured when she obtained this cigarette, or whether she obtained it from someone else who was injured, or whether the blood is entirely unrelated to her acquisition of the cigarette. He paused. There is also the matter of the fire being no accident. Kellerman's fire, presumably. One would assume, yet why would Claudine Reeve wait 6 weeks to communicate this information? And why communicate it to me? He frowned. Archie, when you observed her, did she appear injured? Not that I could see. She moved normally. No limp, no favoring one side. Then the blood is either old or belongs to someone else. He pushed the microfilm toward me. Take this to Phillips and have it properly enlarged and printed. I want to see the full ledger page. Phillips was a photography expert we used occasionally, discreet and fast. I pocketed the microfilm. Anything else? Yes. At lunch, inform Fritz that we will have no tobacco products in this house. The smell disturbs the orchids. Which was Wolfe's way of saying the case annoyed him, but he was going to solve it anyway. I went to find Fritz and tell him about Wolfe's latest declaration of war against modernity, industrial odors, and anything that interrupted his carefully constructed routine. Little did I know that this routine was about to be shattered by murder, fire, and a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of New York's political and financial machinery. But that's the thing about trouble delivered in elegant packages. You don't know how big it is until you've unwrapped all the layers, and we'd only just broken the seal. At lunch, baked sea bass with fennel and cherry tomatoes, plus Fritz's incomparable herb-roasted potatoes, Wolfe declared the case closed before it had properly opened. The matter, he announced, spearing a tomato, is fundamentally industrial. Industry bores me. Inspector Cramer has ample resources to investigate Kellerman's death and the factory fire. We have no client and no fee. Therefore, we have no case. I waited until he'd finished chewing. What about Claudine Reeve? What about her? She came to you specifically. She could have gone to the police. Perhaps she is a lunatic who selected me at random from the telephone directory. Under W for world's most stubborn detective. He gave me a look that would have frozen beer. I am not stubborn. I am selective. There is a difference. Right. So we're just going to ignore the blood-stained cigarette, the cryptic message, the murdered factory owner, And the mysterious woman who specifically asked for your help. Precisely. He returned his attention to the sea bass. I ate in silence for a while, formulating my attack. With Wolfe, you had to come at things sideways. Direct confrontation made him dig in like a Balkan warlord defending a mountain pass. You know, I said casually, I was reading about those Byzantine cigarettes. Very exclusive. They were made with a special blend of Turkish and Macedonian tobacco, hand-rolled by artisans who trained for years. Each cigarette took 5 minutes to construct. The factory only produced about 2,000 packs a year, all by hand. Wolfe's fork paused halfway to his mouth. The last shipment, I continued, was destroyed in the fire, which means the box Claudine brought us is probably one of the last surviving examples of a dead craft, sort of like those orchids you're always worried about going extinct. Orchids and cigarettes are not comparable. Sure they are. Both require specialized knowledge, both represent years of cultural development, both can be destroyed by carelessness or malice. I paused. Both deserve to have their mysteries solved. He set down his fork. That was manipulative. That was effective. There's a difference. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Archie, you are transparent. I'm persuasive. You are employed. Which was Wolfe's way of conceding the point. I pressed my advantage. Besides, the microfilm has 5 names on it. Kellerman's dead. That leaves 4 more who might meet the same fate if we don't figure out what's on that ledger. You want that on your conscience. I have no conscience where strangers are concerned. You have curiosity, which is worse. It'll nag at you during orchid time. You'll brood over the phalaenopsis and wonder about the 7th cigarette. You'll develop indigestion. I never develop indigestion. There's always a first time. He picked up his wine glass, drank, and set it down with mathematical precision. Very well, but the moment this case proves tedious, I am withdrawing. Define tedious. Anything involving factory inspections, labor union disputes, or the inner workings of cigarette manufacturer. That's pretty much the whole case. Then you will handle those aspects while I handle the intellectual ones. The intellectual ones being sitting here drinking beer. Precisely. I finished my potatoes. Victory tasted good, even if it came with the knowledge that I'd be doing all the legwork while Wolfe theorized from his chair. After lunch, I drove to Philip's studio in the West Village. He had the microfilm blown up and printed within an hour. The result was a revelation. The ledger page was dated March 15, 1952, 5 weeks after the factory fire. It listed 5 names and associated payments. Milton Royce, $8,500. Frank Derner, $12,000. Victor Parr, $7,200. Bertram Kellerman, $15,000. Anton Storch, $10,000. Below the payments was a note in the same elegant handwriting. Delivery complete, second shipment arranged. MB confirms distribution channel secure. I stared at the paper. Payments made 6 weeks after the factory burned. A second shipment of what? And who was MB? I called Wolfe from a payphone. The microfilm shows payments to 5 people, including Kellerman, dated weeks after the fire. There's a note about deliveries and distribution channels. Intriguing. He sounded more alert. Return immediately. Saul will be here at 4:30 with his report. When I got back to the brownstone, Diana was at the door to greet me, tail wagging. She'd been waiting by the front hall, probably hoping I'd brought snacks. I scratched her ears, and she danced in circles before returning to her patrol route. In the office, Wolfe was reading the orchid records again, but I could tell his mind was elsewhere. The beer glass on his desk was still half full, which was unprecedented. When Wolfe left beer unfinished, something was seriously bothering him. At 4:20, the doorbell rang. Saul Panzer came in, looking like he'd been digging through garbage dumps, which, knowing Saul, he probably had. He was a small, homely man, with a big head, and alert eyes that missed nothing. "Coffee?" I asked. "Black. 3 sugars. Thanks, Archie." We settled in the office. Wolfe had come down from the plant rooms at 4, seen Saul, and waved him to the yellow chair. Now Wolfe sat behind his desk, hands laced over his stomach, looking like a Buddha contemplating infinity. "Report," Wolfe said. Saul pulled out a notebook. Byzantine cigarette factory, located in Long Island City, Queens. established 1924 by a Turkish immigrant named Hikmet Bey. Small operation, never more than 15 employees. Specialized in hand-rolled Turkish cigarettes, very high-end. Their customers included diplomats, wealthy collectors, and a few celebrities. The factory burned on February 2nd of this year. Fire department ruled it accidental, faulty wiring. But there were inconsistencies. The fire started in 3 separate locations simultaneously. Someone claimed they saw a man leaving the building minutes before the blaze. The investigation was shut down after 2 weeks. By whom? Wolfe asked. That's interesting. The order came from the commissioner's office. No explanation given. Commissioner Wade. The same. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Commissioner Rupert Wade was a political animal, more interested in photo opportunities than police work. His intervention suggested something bigger than a factory fire. Continue, Wolfe said. Bertram Kellerman bought the factory from Hikmet Bey's widow in 1948, paid $60,000 for it. He ran it for 4 years, kept the same employees, same methods. Business was stable but not spectacular. The factory produced about 100,000 cigarettes per year, sold through exclusive tobacconists in Manhattan. Profit margin was thin. Then why did Kellerman buy it? I asked. Saul smiled. That's where it gets interesting. Kellerman was a tobacco broker before he bought the factory. He had connections to import-export companies, shipping firms, and customs officials. He knew the business inside and out. But according to tax records, the factory lost money every year under his ownership. A deliberate loss. Looks like it. The kind of loss that suggests the visible business was covering something less visible. Wolfe nodded slowly. Smuggling? That'd be my guess. Turkish cigarettes make perfect cover for bringing in other Turkish goods. Opium, heroin, untaxed luxury items. The factory had regular shipments from Istanbul and Izmir. Customs knew Kellerman, trusted him. Easy to slip contraband through. What about the employees? Most scattered after the fire. A few took jobs at other tobacco companies, but 3 are missing. Victor Parr, the factory chemist, Claudine Reeve, the office manager, and a warehouse foreman named Jackson Trimble. Claudine Reeve, Wolfe murmured. You have information about her? Some. Age 36, born in Montreal. Moved to New York in 1947. Worked as a translator before joining the factory. Speaks French, Turkish, and English. Smart, organized, kept the books. According to co-workers, she was suspicious of Kellerman, thought he was running some kind of side operation. 2 weeks after the fire, someone tried to grab her outside her apartment. She disappeared the next day. And the other names on the microfilm? Saul flipped pages. Milton Royce, tobacco broker, Kellerman's business partner, has an office on 47th Street, lives in Westchester, known associate of the Morelli family. The Morellis? I sat up. The Morellis were mid-level mob operators, ran cigarette smuggling and bootleg liquor through the docks. Yeah, Royce handles their tobacco distribution. Frank Derner, union organizer, Tobacco Workers Local 47. He led a strike against the factory last year, accused Kellerman of union busting. The strike fizzled after 2 weeks, and Derner suddenly bought a new car and moved to a better apartment. Anton Storch, city building inspector, handled the factory's permits. He signed off on electrical and fire safety inspections 3 months before the factory burned. Bribery all around, I said. Looks like it. Everyone on that microfilm was getting paid by someone. The question is who and for what? Wolfe was silent for a long moment. Then the second shipment mentioned in the note. Any ideas? Could be more contraband. Could be something else entirely. The timing's odd. Why arrange a second shipment after destroying your distribution center? Unless, Wolfe said softly, the factory was never the true distribution center. Perhaps it was merely a convenient fiction, a dress for customs paperwork, while the real operation occurred elsewhere. Saul nodded. Makes sense. Burn the factory, erase records, move the operation to a new location with no connection to the old one. But keep the same associates, I added, because they're already compromised and controllable. Precisely, Wolfe said, and Kellerman became a liability. Perhaps he demanded more money. Perhaps he threatened exposure, so he was eliminated. What about Claudine? I asked. She discovered the ledger, Wolfe said, either by accident or through deliberate investigation. She realized the fire was arson, and suspected murder would follow. She escaped and went into hiding. But she needed help, someone outside the police department, since Commissioner Wade was clearly implicated. So she came to me. Why not just take the ledger to the newspapers? Because a ledger without context is meaningless. She needed someone who could interpret the information, trace the connections, and build a prosecutable case. Wolfe paused. Or perhaps she wished to protect certain people while exposing others. You think she's complicit? I think she is terrified and desperate. That is a dangerous combination. Saul closed his notebook. What do you want me to do? Locate Claudine Reeve, discreetly. She will not surface unless she feels safe. Also investigate Milton Royce's recent activities. I wish to know whom he meets, where he goes, what he imports. I'll need help. Fred's available. Engage him. The usual rates. Wolfe looked at me. Archie, tomorrow you will visit the factory site. I want to know if anything remains. Documents, equipment, evidence. The fire inspector's overlooked. Then call on Anton Storch. Tell him you're a private investigator looking into insurance fraud. See how he reacts. What about Derner and Parr? Not yet. We move carefully. Someone in this constellation is a killer. I prefer not to alert them to our interest until we understand the geometry. Saul left. I showed him out, and Caesar accompanied us to the door, tail wagging goodbye. Saul and Caesar were old friends. Saul always brought liver treats. Back in the office, I found Wolfe staring at the Byzantine cigarettes. Something's bothering you, I said. Everything bothers me. Be specific. The case. Ah, yes, he picked up the blood-stained cigarette again. This blood is fresh, 3 days old at most, but Kellerman was killed this morning. Therefore, the blood is not his. Claudine's? Possibly. Or another victim we have not yet discovered. He set the cigarette down with distaste. There is something malignant here, Archie. Something beyond mere smuggling and bribery. The destruction of the factory, the systematic elimination of witnesses, the involvement of city officials. This suggests organization and ruthlessness at a level we have not yet apprehended. You think it goes higher than the Morellis? I think the Morellis are convenient scapegoats. The true architect of this scheme remains hidden. He reached for his beer, drained it, and rang for Fritz. We proceed carefully, and we keep the dogs close. As if on cue, Mars appeared in the doorway, looked around the office, and settled by Wolfe's desk. Minerva came down the hall and took up station by the door. The brownstone's guardians, assembling without being called. Wolfe noticed. He reached down and scratched Mars behind the ears, a rare gesture of affection. Yes, he murmured. You sense it too. Danger approaching. And with that cheerful thought, we adjourned for dinner. Thursday morning, I drove to Queens. The Byzantine cigarette factory, or what remained of it, occupied a corner lot on an industrial street lined with warehouses and machine shops. The building was a gutted shell, walls blackened, roof collapsed, windows blown out. Yellow caution tape fluttered in the April breeze. The whole place smelled like wet charcoal and defeat. I parked across the street and walked the perimeter. The fire department had boarded up the main entrance, but there was a side door hanging loose on its hinges. I pulled it open and went inside. The interior was a disaster. Charred timber, melted machinery, piles of ash and debris. But there was something odd about the destruction pattern. The fire had been most intense in 3 areas: the front office, the warehouse section, and a back room that might have been the chemistry lab. As Saul had mentioned, 3 separate origin points. I picked my way through the wreckage, being careful where I stepped. Near what used to be the office, I found the remains of a filing cabinet. The drawers had been pried open, not by the fire, but by someone with a crowbar. The marks were fresh, probably made within the last few weeks. Someone had searched this place after the fire. In the warehouse section, I found more evidence of post-fire activity. Footprints in the ash, too recent to be from the fire department. Size 11 shoes, judging by the prints, probably men's work boots. They led from the door to the center of the warehouse and back again. What had they been looking for? The chemistry lab was completely destroyed, nothing recognizable left. But as I poked through the debris, something caught my eye. A small intact glass bottle wedged between 2 fallen beams. I pulled it out carefully. The label was singed but readable. Proprietary blend, V. Parr. Victor Parr, the missing chemist. The bottle contained a brownish powder that smelled like tobacco but wasn't quite right. Too sweet, too chemical. I pocketed the bottle. Before leaving, I checked the alley behind the factory. More footprints, these ones leading to tire marks. A van or small truck had parked here recently. I photographed everything with my camera. Wolfe liked evidence documented. I was about to leave when I heard footsteps. Someone was coming through the front entrance. I moved behind a partially collapsed wall and watched. A man entered, middle-aged, wearing an expensive suit that looked ridiculous in the ruins. He had a briefcase and the careful walk of someone who didn't want to dirty his shoes. He went straight to the office area, to the same filing cabinet I'd found. He crouched down, examining the pried-open drawers, then stood and looked around. "Damn it," he muttered. I stepped out. "Lose something?" He spun around, and I got a good look at him. Soft features, receding hairline, jowls that suggested too much good living. His eyes were hard despite the soft face. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. "Archie Goodwin, private investigator. And you?" He hesitated, then seemed to decide cooperation was safer than confrontation. "Milton Royce. I owned a share of this factory, along with Bertram Kellerman." His expression flickered. "You heard about Bertram. Hard to miss. It was in the morning papers." "Yes, terrible business." He didn't sound terribly broken up about it. "What brings you here, Mr. Royce?" "Insurance matters. I'm trying to assess what's salvageable." "Looks like someone beat you to it. Those file drawers were opened recently." He glanced at the cabinet. "Vandals, probably." "Vandals with a specific interest in business files?" His jaw tightened. "Who are you working for, Mr. Goodwin?" "A party interested in what caused the fire." "The fire department said faulty wiring." "The fire department says a lot of things. Doesn't make them true." We stared at each other. Then Royce said, "I don't know what you're fishing for, but you won't find it here. The factory's gone. The business is gone. Bertram's dead. It's over." "What about the second shipment?" His face went blank. "What shipment?" "The one mentioned in Kellerman's ledger, the one dated after the fire." His hand moved toward his briefcase, then stopped. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't. Must be why you're here looking through burned files." "Get out," he said quietly. "This is private property. Actually, it's a crime scene. Arson's a crime, so is murder." I said, "Get out." I smiled. "Leaving now, but we'll talk again, Mr. Royce, soon." I walked past him, feeling his eyes on my back. Outside, I noted his car, a black Chrysler Imperial, Connecticut plates. Expensive ride for a tobacco broker with a burned-out factory. I drove back to Manhattan, thinking about Royce's reaction to the mention of the second shipment. He'd known exactly what I was talking about, and it had rattled him badly. From the factory, I went to visit Anton Storch at the City Building Inspection Office on Worth Street. The office was a maze of file rooms and cramped cubicles, smelling of old paper and bureaucratic despair. Storch was in a third-floor cubicle, hidden behind stacks of building plans and permit applications. He was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and nervous hands that kept adjusting his tie. I introduced myself as an insurance investigator looking into the factory fire. He bought it, probably because insurance investigators are as common as pigeons in New York. "Byzantine cigarettes," he said, pulling a file. "Yes, I remember that one. Tragic. Total loss. You signed off on their electrical inspection 3 months before the fire."
That's correct.
"Find any problems?" "None. The wiring was up to code. Funny how it caused a fire then." His hand stopped adjusting his tie. "Wiring fails. It happens. 3 separate fires starting simultaneously. That happens?" "I just inspect buildings, Mr. Goodwin. I don't investigate fires." "What did you inspect exactly?" He consulted the file. "Electrical systems, fire exits, sprinkler system. Everything passed." "The factory had sprinklers?" "Yes, standard commercial system." "Did they work during the fire?" He blinked. I don't know. Seems like something you'd check, doesn't it? If a building with a working sprinkler system burns down, that might suggest the sprinklers failed or were sabotaged." "I can't help you with that." "Can't or won't." His face had gone pale. I did my job. The inspection was thorough. If there were problems later, that's not on me. I leaned forward. Mr. Storch, Bertram Kellerman was murdered yesterday. The factory you inspected burned down in a suspicious fire. A woman who worked there is missing. A chemist who worked there is missing. And your name appears on a financial ledger connected to all of this. Now you can tell me what you know, or you can wait until the police come asking. But they'll be a lot less friendly than me. His hands were shaking now. I don't know anything. I just signed the papers. Someone paid you to sign papers on a building with faulty wiring and disabled sprinklers? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. How much did they pay you, Anton? He stood up abruptly. Get out. I'm not answering any more questions. Who paid you? Was it Kellerman? Royce? Out. I stood slowly. You're scared. I get it. But scared men make mistakes, and mistakes get people killed. You want to end up like Kellerman? I don't know anything, he repeated, but his voice was hollow. I left my card on his desk. When you remember, call me, before someone makes you forget permanently. Outside, I called Wolfe from a corner drugstore. Royce is lying. Storch is terrified. And someone's been searching the factory ruins recently. Describe Royce's demeanor. I did. Wolfe listened without interrupting. He is the pivot point, Wolfe said when I finished. Kellerman is dead. Storch is a pawn. Derner is a tool. But Royce has authority and connections. He arranged the second shipment, whatever it may be. Think he killed Kellerman? Unlikely. Royce employs killers. He does not dirty his own hands, but he ordered it or sanctioned it. Find out where he lives. We will visit him this evening. You're leaving the house. The investigation requires it. Pick me up at 7. And Archie, bring your gun. The line went dead. I stood there holding the receiver, astonished. Wolfe voluntarily leaving the brownstone was like the Pope deciding to go bowling. It only happened when absolutely necessary. This case had him worried, and when Nero Wolfe worried, trouble was serious. I used the afternoon to dig into Milton Royce's background. His office was in a nondescript building on 47th Street, but he wasn't there. His secretary, a bottle blonde with suspicious eyes, said he'd gone home early. His home address wasn't in the phone book, but a little persuasion and $20 convinced the secretary to give me a Westchester address, a house in Scarsdale, expensive neighborhood. I also checked in with Saul, who'd spent the morning tracking Royce's movements from the previous week. According to Saul, Royce had met twice with Frank Derner, the union man, at a bar near the docks. He'd also visited a warehouse in Brooklyn, owned by something called Meridian Imports. Meridian's on paper only. Saul told me, registered to a holding company, no actual operations I can find, but the warehouse has activity, trucks coming and going at night. Think that's where the second shipment went? Good bet. Fred's watching the place tonight. At 6:30, I drove home. The dogs greeted me at the door, all 5 of them, which was unusual. They were restless, pacing. Caesar kept looking toward the windows. Fritz was in the kitchen, preparing something that smelled like heaven. Archie, the dogs are nervous today. They sense something. They're probably picking up on Wolfe's mood. He's actually leaving the house tonight. Fritz nearly dropped his spoon. Leaving? But it's Thursday. Thursday is... Yeah, I know. Unprecedented. I went to the office. Wolfe was at his desk, wearing his overcoat, a tent-like garment that made him look like a mobile mound. He had his walking stick, which meant he was prepared for trouble. Ready? I asked. No, but necessity overrides preference. He stood with effort. We will take both cars. You drive yours. I will take the sedan with Fritz. The dogs will accompany us. All of them? Caesar and Mars. The others remained to guard the brownstone. This was serious. Wolfe never brought the dogs on cases unless he expected physical danger. We caravanned to Westchester, me leading in my convertible, Fritz following in Wolfe's massive sedan with Wolfe filling the back seat, and Caesar and Mars riding alert. It took an hour to reach Scarsdale. Royce's house was a Tudor-style mansion, set back from the road, surrounded by manicured lawns and a wrought-iron fence. Lights blazed from every window. Cars lined the circular driveway. A party was in progress. Perfect. I parked on the street. Fritz pulled up behind me. Wolfe extricated himself from the sedan with the grace of a beached whale, then stood looking at the house with distaste. Ostentation, he muttered. The criminal class has no aesthetic sense. Caesar and Mars flanked him like furry bodyguards. We approached the front door, and I rang the bell. A butler answered, actual butler, complete with formal wear. He looked at Wolfe, then at the dogs, and his expression suggested he was reconsidering his career choices. "Mr. Milton Royce, please," I said. "Tell him Nero Wolfe wishes to speak with him. Mr. Royce is entertaining guests. Tell him Nero Wolfe is here about Bertram Kellerman's murder. If he refuses to see me, I will summon the police, and they will interrupt his party far more dramatically than I." The butler's face went stiff. "Wait here." He closed the door. We waited. Caesar sat, perfectly calm. Mars paced, watching the shadows. The door opened. The butler looked sick. "Mr. Royce will see you in his study. The dogs?" "The dogs accompany us," Wolfe said flatly. We entered. The party noise came from the back of the house. Laughter, music, crystal clinking. The butler led us to an oak-paneled study lined with law books that had probably never been opened. Royce was there, still wearing his suit from this morning, but now with a drink in his hand. He looked at Wolfe, then at me. "You're persistent, Mr. Goodwin. I'm employed by Mr. Wolfe. Persistence is required." Royce turned to Wolfe. "And you're Nero Wolfe. I've heard of you. You solve murders." "I solve puzzles. Murder is merely one variety." Wolfe settled into a leather chair that protested. Caesar lay down beside him. Mars stayed by the door, watching. "You have been avoiding certain questions, Mr. Royce. That ends now. I don't have to talk to you." "True, but you will answer Inspector Cramer's questions tomorrow when he arrests you for complicity in Bertram Kellerman's murder. Or you will answer mine now, privately, and perhaps avoid that indignity." Royce drank. "You're bluffing." "I never bluff. I have evidence linking you to a smuggling operation, to bribery of city officials, to financial arrangements made after the factory fire, and to a second shipment that suggests ongoing criminal activity. Kellerman's death was merely the most recent consequence of your conspiracy. Prove it." Wolfe reached into his coat and produced a folded paper, the enlarged microfilm. "This ledger shows payments to you and 4 others. It is dated March 15th, 6 weeks after the factory burned. One of the recipients is now dead. Another is missing. A third is terrified. You are calm, which suggests either innocence or authority. I suspect authority." Royce's face had gone expressionless. "That proves nothing. Combined with testimony from Anton Storch, evidence of your meetings with Frank Derner, and the discovery of your warehouse operation in Brooklyn, it proves substantial criminal enterprise." Wolfe paused. "But I am not primarily interested in your smuggling operation, Mr. Royce. I am interested in who killed Bertram Kellerman and why." "I didn't kill him." "I know, but you know who did, and you know why." Silence. Royce finished his drink and poured another. His hand was steady. "Kellerman was greedy." Royce said finally. "He wanted out, wanted to take his cut and disappear. But you don't walk away from certain arrangements, not when you know too much. So you had him killed." "I didn't, but I didn't stop it either." "Who gave the order?" "I don't know." "You're lying." Royce looked at Wolfe. "You want the truth? Here's the truth. I'm a middleman. I arrange deliveries, I smooth over problems, I make sure the product moves. But I don't make policy decisions. I don't order hits. I just facilitate." "Whom do you facilitate for?" "People who don't like their names mentioned." "The Morellis." Royce laughed, a bitter sound. "The Morellis are street trash. This operation is bigger than them." "How big?" "Big enough that your investigation ends tonight, Mr. Wolfe. Big enough that asking more questions will get you killed." Caesar growled, low and threatening. Mars moved closer to the door. Wolfe didn't flinch. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you. Kellerman's dead because he asked too many questions. Claudine Reeve is hiding because she knows too much. Victor Parr disappeared because he tried to go independent. And you," he pointed at Wolfe, "you're about to join them if you don't back off." "I never back off." "Then you're a fool." "Perhaps, but I am a persistent fool. Now tell me about the second shipment." Royce set down his glass. "Get out." "Not until you answer my questions." "Get out." Wolfe stood slowly. Majestically, a mountain rising. Very well, but understand this, Mr. Royce. You are now part of my investigation. I will uncover your operation. I will expose your backers, and I will deliver you to Inspector Cramer, wrapped in evidence like a birthday present. You have 48 hours to reconsider cooperation. After that, you become collateral damage. We left. In the car driving back to Manhattan, I said, "That went well." It went as expected. Royce is frightened but defiant. He serves larger interests. Think he'll talk? No. But his fear will make him careless. He will contact his superiors, and that contact will leave traces. Wolfe settled back into his seat. Call Saul. Have him watch Royce's house and follow anyone who visits tonight. Also contact Fred. I want 24-hour surveillance on that Brooklyn warehouse. You think the second shipment's there? I think the Brooklyn warehouse is the center of operations. The factory was a front. The real smuggling occurs elsewhere and has occurred continuously despite the fire. What are they smuggling? At this point, anything valuable enough to murder for? Drugs, weapons, stolen goods, illegal currency. The specific contraband is less important than the structure of the operation. And Kellerman got killed because he threatened to expose the operation, or because he demanded a larger share, or because he became unreliable. The precise reason will emerge. Wolfe paused. What troubles me is the blood on the cigarette. Fresh blood, recent injury. Someone besides Kellerman has been hurt, possibly killed. We must find Claudine Reeve before she becomes the next victim. We drove in silence for a while. Caesar and Mars slept in the back with Wolfe, but their ears stayed pricked, alert even in rest. Back at the brownstone, it was nearly midnight. Wolfe went straight to his room. Fritz took the dogs to the kitchen for a late snack. I stayed in the office, thinking. The case was expanding like smoke from a fire, drifting into corners we hadn't yet explored. Kellerman dead, Pa missing, Claudine hiding, Royce stonewalling, and behind it all, some larger organization pulling strings. I was about to go up to bed when the phone rang. Archie, it was Saul. We've got a development. Talk to me. Fred just called from Brooklyn. The warehouse. There's activity. Trucks arrived 20 minutes ago. They're loading something. Can Fred see what? Not clearly, but here's the interesting part. One of the trucks has Connecticut plates. Same plates as Royce's Chrysler. I sat up straight. Royce is moving product tonight. Looks like it. And there's more. I'm outside Royce's house. 10 minutes after you left, another car arrived. Guess who got out? Tell me. Commissioner Wade, the police commissioner, visiting a suspected smuggler. At midnight. Still watching? Yeah. They're in the study. Lights on, curtains closed. Stay on it. Call me if anything changes. I hung up and sat there thinking. Then I called Wolfe's room. Yes? He sounded irritated at being disturbed. I told him about the warehouse activity and Wade's visit. Silence. Then this confirms our hypothesis. The operation extends into the highest levels of city government. Commissioner Wade is either complicit or compromised. What do? We photograph Wade leaving Royce's house. We document the warehouse shipment. We build a case that cannot be ignored, even by corrupt officials. Call Saul back. Tell him to photograph everything. Tell Fred to get license plates from all the trucks. And Archie? Yeah. Sleep with your gun tonight. We have just become very dangerous to very powerful people. He hung up. I sat in the office for another hour, waiting for Saul's next call. When it came, he had the photographs, Wade entering and leaving Royce's house, timestamp showing a 3-hour meeting. Fred called an hour later. 4 trucks had loaded at the warehouse and dispersed to different locations. He'd gotten all the plate numbers. I compiled everything into a report for Wolfe, then finally went to bed. But sleep didn't come easy. The brownstone was quiet except for the soft sound of dogs patrolling the halls. And somewhere out there in the New York night, someone was moving product, covering tracks, and planning their next move. We were in a race now, a race to expose them before they silenced us the way they'd silenced Kellerman. I checked my gun one more time before closing my eyes. Tomorrow, things would get complicated. Friday morning started with bad news. I came down to breakfast to find Wolfe already in the office, reading the morning papers with the expression that suggested someone had insulted his orchids. Fritz was hovering nearby, looking worried. "What's wrong?" I asked. Wolfe handed me the Times, a front-page story buried below the fold. Second factory fire, kills 2. A warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn, was destroyed by fire early this morning. 2 bodies were recovered from the ruins, identified as Jackson Trimble, 52, and an unidentified male. Police suspect arson. The warehouse was owned by Meridian Imports, a holding company with ties to the tobacco industry. I read it twice. Jackson Trimble, the missing warehouse foreman from the Byzantine factory. "That's the warehouse Fred was watching," I said. "Yes. I received a call from Fred at 6 this morning. He observed the trucks loading and departing. An hour after the last truck left, the building exploded. The fire department suspects a timed incendiary device." Wolfe's voice was flat. "Fred barely escaped. He is shaken but unharmed. They're cleaning house. They are eliminating witnesses and evidence. Trimble knew too much. The warehouse contained records. Both are now ash." I sat down heavily. "Pa? Almost certainly dead as well, though his body has not yet been found. And Claudine? In grave danger. We must locate her before they do." As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Through the glass I saw Cramer's bulky form, and beside him someone else, a woman. I opened the door. Cramer stumped in, followed by a slim woman in a dark coat. She was pale, exhausted, and her left hand was bandaged. "Claudine Reeve," Cramer said. "Found her at the precinct an hour ago. She came in asking for me, said she wouldn't talk to anyone except me and you." Claudine looked at me, then toward the office. "Is Nero Wolfe here?" "Right this way." We settled in the office. Claudine took the red leather chair. She moved carefully, favoring her left side. The bandage on her hand looked recent, maybe 3 or 4 days old. Wolfe studied her. "You brought me the cigarettes." "Yes." Her voice was hoarse. "You are injured." "When I got the microfilm, Kellerman's safe had a razor blade trap. I didn't see it until too late. Hence the blood." She nodded. I wrapped the 7th cigarette with tissue from my purse. Didn't realize the blood had soaked through until later. "I'm sorry if that complicated things." "On the contrary, it authenticated your message." Wolfe leaned back. "Tell me everything, please, from the beginning." She took a shaky breath and began. "I started working for Kellerman 3 years ago. Good job, decent pay, seemed legitimate. But after about 6 months, I noticed things. Shipments that didn't match the invoices. Payments to people who weren't employees. Kellerman would sometimes close the office early and meet with men in expensive suits, men who didn't look like they belonged in the cigarette business. I started keeping my own records, quietly. I'm a trained bookkeeper. I know when numbers don't add up. The factory was losing money on paper, but Kellerman was getting richer. He bought a new car, a bigger apartment. That doesn't happen with a failing business. 6 months ago I confronted him. Not directly. I just asked about some discrepancies in the import documents. He got angry, told me to mind my own business. After that, he started locking his office, but I had keys." "You searched his office?" Cramer asked. Cramer asked. "Twice. The first time I found correspondence with Milton Royce and the Morelli family. References to special shipments and alternate channels. The second time, I found the ledger." "The one on the microfilm?" "Yes. It was in his safe, with other documents, shipping manifests, customs forms, bribes paid to officials. I photographed what I could with a miniature camera. That's when I triggered the razor blade. Cut my hand badly. I wrapped it and got out." "This was when?" Wolfe asked. 4 days ago, Wednesday night. I went to my apartment, grabbed essentials, and disappeared. I'd already had one attempt on my life. A week earlier, someone tried to grab me on the street. I knew they'd come again. "Why didn't you go to the police immediately?" She looked at Cramer. "Because Commissioner Wade's name was in those documents. Payments, favors, protection. I didn't know who to trust." Cramer's face darkened. "You're saying the commissioner is involved?" "I'm saying his name is on receipts for $60,000 in payments over 2 years. Jesus Christ. So I went to ground," Claudine continued. "Stayed with a friend in Queens. Someone from my old life that Kellerman didn't know about. I waited, trying to figure out what to do. Then I read about Nero Wolfe. You solved that case last year, the one with the poisoned banker. You weren't afraid of powerful people, so I brought you the evidence. Why not the full ledger? Wolfe asked. Because I needed insurance. If something happened to me, I wanted someone else to have a piece of the puzzle. I kept the original ledger hidden. The microfilm was leverage enough to get your attention, not enough to complete the picture. Where is the original ledger now? Safe. In a locker at Grand Central Station. I have the key. She pulled a small brass key from her coat pocket. Wolfe examined it without touching. What else is in the locker? Everything. The full ledger, the shipping manifests, the correspondence, photographs of the bribes, everything I could carry. And Jackson Trimble, did you know him? Her face crumpled. Jackson was my friend. He ran the warehouse, managed the loading crews. He knew about the smuggling, but kept quiet. They were paying him well. But after the fire, he got scared, started drinking, talking too much. I warned him to run. He wouldn't listen. What were they smuggling? I asked. Cigarettes. At first, untaxed cigarettes, brought in from Turkey and resold on the black market. That was the original operation. But 6 months ago, it changed. The shipments got heavier. The security got tighter. Kellerman got nervous. He stopped letting me near the warehouse. Drugs, Cramer suggested. I think so. Heroin, probably. The Turkish connection made sense. Istanbul is a major transit point, and the amounts of money involved, cigarettes wouldn't generate that kind of profit. Wolfe nodded slowly. And Victor Parr, the chemist? Victor was analyzing the product, maybe cutting it, preparing it for distribution. He worked in a lab at the back of the factory. After the fire, he disappeared. I think he's dead. I agree. His body has not yet surfaced, but it will. Wolfe paused. Tell me about the night of the fire. I wasn't there. I'd been avoiding the factory after Kellerman warned me off, but I heard about it the next day. The official story was faulty wiring, but I knew better. Kellerman had just paid for a complete electrical upgrade. The wiring was perfect. Arson to destroy evidence, Wolfe said. Yes, and to close the operation. The factory was becoming a liability. Too visible, too many questions. Better to burn it down, collect insurance, and move the operation elsewhere. To the Brooklyn warehouse. She nodded. Which is now also burned. They're eliminating every trace. Why did Kellerman have to die? I asked. Because he panicked. After the factory burned, he demanded more money, threatened to go to the newspapers if they didn't pay him. That's when I knew he was finished. You don't threaten these people. Who are these people? Cramer demanded. I don't know. Kellerman took orders from Royce, but Royce took orders from someone higher. Someone with political protection, money, connections. She looked at Wolfe. That's why I came to you. The police can't touch them. They own the police. But you're independent. Wolfe was silent for a long moment. Finally he said, Miss Reeve, you have been brave and resourceful, but you have also placed yourself in extreme danger. These people will kill you without hesitation. I know. Therefore, you will remain here, under protection, until this matter is resolved. Archie will retrieve the materials from Grand Central. Inspector Cramer will ensure you are not registered at any police facility. And I will solve this case in such a manner that your testimony becomes superfluous. She looked like she might cry. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. We have a long road ahead. He looked at Cramer. You will need to move carefully. Commissioner Wade is involved. Your investigation must bypass normal channels. Wade's finished, Cramer growled. Once I show this evidence to the DA. No, Wolfe said sharply. Not yet. Wade is merely a symptom. We must identify the disease before amputating limbs. You want me to sit on evidence of corruption? I want you to gather sufficient evidence to destroy the entire organization, not merely one corrupt official. Wade's arrest will alert the others. They will scatter, destroy records, eliminate witnesses. We will lose our chance. Cramer chewed his unlit cigar. How long? 48 hours. By Sunday evening, I will have the answers. Then you may arrest everyone simultaneously. And if you don't, then Monday morning, take your evidence to the district attorney and let chaos ensue. They stared at each other. Finally, Cramer nodded. Sunday night. But if anyone else dies, no one else will die. I guarantee it. Cramer left. taking Claudine's statement with him but leaving Claudine herself. After he was gone, I showed her to the south room, a guest bedroom on the 3rd floor, comfortable and secure. "The dogs will patrol tonight," I told her. "You're safe here." "I hope so." Back in the office, Wolfe was on the phone with Saul, giving rapid instructions. When he hung up, he said, "Fetch the materials from Grand Central. Use caution. They may be watching the station." "You think they know about the locker?" "If they're competent, they will have deduced its existence. A woman fleeing with documents has limited options for secure storage. Grand Central, Penn Station, or a bank vault. They will watch all three." "Want me to take one of the dogs?" "Take Apollo. He is alert and aggressive. If someone follows you, he will notice." I got Apollo, my gun, and Claudine's key. We drove to Grand Central in the afternoon traffic, Apollo sitting alert in the passenger seat, watching everything. The station was crowded. Commuters, tourists, people going nowhere fast. I kept my eyes moving, looking for tails. Spotted 2 possibles. A man in a grey suit reading a newspaper but not turning pages, and a woman in a business outfit who'd been at 3 different positions I'd passed. The lockers were in the lower level, rows and rows of metal doors. I found number 247, inserted the key, and opened it. Inside was a leather satchel, heavy and full. I pulled it out, closed the locker, and turned around. Grey suit was 10 feet away, moving toward me. Apollo growled. The man stopped. His hand moved toward his coat. "I wouldn't," I said. "My hand was on my gun. The dog's faster than you." Grey suit hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, I moved, fast, putting distance between us and angling toward the exit. Apollo stayed between us, hackles up, teeth bared. We made it to the stairs. I took them 2 at a time, Apollo beside me. Behind us I heard running footsteps. In the main concourse, I ducked into the crowd, using bodies as cover. Apollo stayed close, his training kicking in. We zigzagged through commuters, doubled back twice, and finally burst out onto 42nd Street. My car was 2 blocks away. We ran. Behind us, Grey suit emerged from the station, saw us, and reached for something. I didn't wait to see what. I fired twice into the air. People screamed. Cops materialized from nowhere. In the chaos, Apollo and I reached the car and I gunned the engine. 15 minutes later, we were back at the brownstone, safe. Wolfe was in the office. I dropped the satchel on his desk. We had company. They're getting serious. Yes, he opened the satchel and began examining contents. The full ledger, shipping manifests, correspondence, photographs, exactly as Claudine had described. He spent 20 minutes reviewing everything, occasionally making notes. Finally, he looked up. "This is comprehensive. Kellerman documented everything, probably as insurance. Fool. Insurance without proper protection is merely evidence for your killers. What's the plan? Tomorrow we confront the architect of this scheme. Tonight we prepare." "Who's the architect?" "I have a suspicion. These documents confirm it. But suspicion is not proof. We need a confession, or failing that, evidence sufficient to force one." He reached for the phone and began dialing. Over the next hour, he made 6 calls, to Saul, to Fred, to Lon Cohen at the Gazette, to a lawyer named Parker, to someone at the district attorney's office, and finally to Milton Royce. The last call was brief. Wolfe said, "Mr. Royce, this is Nero Wolfe. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, you will come to my office. You will bring your superior, the person to whom you report. If you do not, I will deliver all evidence of your operation to the newspapers and the police simultaneously, and you will be arrested by noon. I expect you to be punctual. Good evening." He hung up. I stared at him. "You think Royce will show?" "He will. His superior will insist on it. They need to know what we have, what we know, and whether we can be bought or frightened into silence. They will come. And if they come with guns? That is why the dogs remain close, and why you will stay armed." He stood with effort. "Call Claudine down. I wish to speak with her about tomorrow's events. She must be prepared." That night, the brownstone was a fortress. All 5 dogs patrolled in shifts. I checked the doors and windows twice. Fritz prepared dinner, rack of lamb with mint jelly, roasted vegetables, and a cherry tart that would have made angels weep. But none of us ate much. Claudine was quiet, withdrawn. The reality of her situation was settling in. She'd become the key witness in a case that would shake New York's political establishment. After dinner, Wolfe called us all into the office. Me, Claudine, and Fritz. "Tomorrow," he said, "we will resolve this matter. I believe I know who ordered Kellerman's death and why. I believe I can prove it, but the confrontation will be dangerous. Our visitors will be desperate. Therefore, I want everyone armed and alert. Fritz, you will remain in the kitchen with Diana and Minerva. Archie, you will be in the office with me, with Caesar and Mars. Apollo will patrol the halls. Claudine will remain in the south room, with the door locked until I send for her." "What if they don't come?" I asked. "They will come. Their arrogance demands it. They believe themselves untouchable. I will demonstrate otherwise." We dispersed. I cleaned my gun and loaded extra clips. Fritz checked the locks again. The dogs settled into their stations, alert and ready. Upstairs, alone in my room, I thought about what tomorrow might bring. A confrontation with killers, a case solved, or a disaster unfolding. With Wolfe, you never knew which way things would tip until the final moment. But one thing was certain: tomorrow would be a reckoning. And in the morning light, we'd learn whether justice or violence would carry the day. The concluding chapter, continuing the story to its resolution. Saturday morning, 9:50, everyone was in position. I was at my desk, gun in shoulder holster, alert. Wolfe was behind his massive desk, hands folded, looking deceptively peaceful. Caesar lay beside him, perfectly calm. Mars was by the door, watching. Apollo patrolled the hallway outside. Upstairs, Claudine waited in the south room. Fritz was in the kitchen with Diana and Minerva, phone within reach to call Cramer if needed. At 9:55, the doorbell rang. Through the glass, I saw Milton Royce, looking nervous, and beside him a tall man in his 60s, distinguished, wearing an expensive dark suit, silver hair, patrician features, the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. I opened the door. "Gentlemen," Royce started to speak, but the tall man cut him off. "I'm Howard Breckinridge. Mr. Wolfe is expecting us." I knew the name, Howard Breckinridge, real estate magnate, former state senator, current board of directors member for half a dozen major corporations, rich, powerful, connected, and apparently a murderer. I showed them into the office. Wolfe didn't rise. He nodded toward the yellow chairs. "Sit." Breckinridge remained standing. "I'm not accustomed to being summoned, Mr. Wolfe, and I am not accustomed to cases involving citywide corruption and multiple murders. Yet here we are. Sit or leave. Either is acceptable." After a moment, Breckinridge sat. Royce collapsed into the other chair like a man going to his execution. Wolfe studied them. "Before we begin, you should know that this conversation is being recorded. The device is hidden and cannot be disabled. I mention this to encourage honesty." Breckinridge's eyes narrowed. "Recorded conversations are not admissible in court." "True, but they are admissible in newspapers, and I have a reporter from the Gazette standing by." "You're bluffing." "I never bluff, Mr. Breckinridge. Ask Mr. Royce. He will confirm that I do not make empty threats." Royce nodded miserably. Breckinridge leaned back. "Very well. What do you want?" "The truth, starting with your smuggling operation." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Then allow me to explain." Wolfe picked up a file, the materials from Grand Central. "For the past 4 years, you have operated a heroin smuggling ring through the Byzantine cigarette factory. The factory provided legitimate cover for shipments from Turkey. Your associate, Bertram Kellerman, managed the operation. Milton Royce handled distribution. Commissioner Wade provided political protection. Anton Storch ensured building inspections posed no problems. Frank Derner prevented union interference." "That's speculation." "It is documented fact. I have the ledger, the shipping manifests, the correspondence and the financial records. Kellerman kept meticulous accounts, probably as insurance against you." Breckinridge's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Wolfe continued. 6 months ago, you decided to expand the operation. Larger shipments, higher profits, but the factory became a liability. Too visible, too many employees, too much potential for exposure. So you burned it down, collected the insurance, and moved operations to a Brooklyn warehouse. But Kellerman objected. He wanted more money for his cooperation. You refused. He threatened exposure, so you had him killed. Prove it. I can. The bullet that killed Kellerman came from a revolver registered to one of your companies. Ballistics will confirm this. That got a reaction, a tiny flinch. Breckenridge looked at Royce. You said the gun was clean. It was disposed of. Evidently not well enough, Wolfe said. The police recovered it from a storm drain 3 blocks from Kellerman's apartment, careless. Breckenridge's composure was cracking. Even if what you say is true, you can't prove I ordered the killing. Can't I? You visited Milton Royce the night after Kellerman died. You were photographed entering and leaving his home. The timing suggests a planning session. Later that night, the Brooklyn warehouse, your distribution center, was destroyed by fire, eliminating evidence and witnesses. Jackson Trimble died in that fire. Convenient timing. Accidental fire. Arson. The fire department found incendiary devices. And here's the interesting part. The devices were custom-made, using a design patented by one of your companies. Rather distinctive calling card. Silence. Breckenridge was thinking fast, calculating options. What do you want? He asked finally. Money? I can pay you well. I want nothing from you except a confession. You'll never get one. I already have. Wolfe nodded toward the door. Come in, Miss Reeve. Claudine entered, followed by Inspector Cramer. Breckenridge's face went white. Miss Reeve has been listening to this conversation, Wolfe said. She can identify your voice from telephone conversations she overheard between you and Kellerman. Combined with the physical evidence, her testimony will place you at the center of the conspiracy. Cramer moved forward. Howard Breckenridge, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, smuggling narcotics, bribery of public officials, and arson. You have the right to remain silent. Wait. Breckenridge held up a hand. He looked old suddenly, diminished. You don't understand. This wasn't supposed to happen. Kellerman was supposed to keep quiet. The operation was supposed to be invisible. But he got greedy, sloppy. He started taking risks. I tried to buy him off, but he wanted more, always more. I couldn't let him destroy everything I'd built. So you killed him. I didn't personally. You ordered it. Same thing. Breckenridge slumped. Yes, I ordered it, but Royce handled the details. The gun, the timing, everything, I just approved. Royce made a strangled sound. You son of a... Shut up, Milton. Breckenridge looked at Wolfe. What happens now? Now you go downtown and make a full statement. You provide names, dates, financial records. You cooperate completely. In exchange, the district attorney might consider reduced charges. And if I refuse? Then you hang for murder, and your family's reputation is destroyed in the newspapers. Your choice. Breckenridge closed his eyes. I'll cooperate. Cramer pulled out handcuffs. Let's go. They took them both, Breckenridge and Royce, arm in arm like dance partners on their way to hell. Claudine stood watching, her face unreadable. After they left, Wolfe said, Inspector, you'll want Anton Storch, Frank Derner, and Commissioner Wade as well. I have statements from Storch and evidence of Wade's involvement. Already got warrants, Cramer said. We're rounding them up now. The DA's going to have a field day with this. One more thing. Vic Parr. His body needs to be found. Where is it? I suspect the factory ruins, buried in the rubble. He was killed before the fire. Then the fire was set to destroy evidence. The medical examiner should search specifically for chemical burns. Parr was a chemist and would have been killed with his own materials. Cramer nodded grimly. We'll find him. After Cramer left with Claudine, she'd need protection until the trial. I turned to Wolfe. How do you know it was Breckenridge? The scale of the operation. This wasn't street-level crime. It required political connections, financial resources, and long-term planning. Royce lacked the authority. Wade lacked the imagination. Only Breckenridge had both the means and the motive. His real estate empire has been struggling. The smuggling operation was his way to maintain his lifestyle, while his legitimate businesses failed. And the gun? I bluffed. But Royce's company handles security contracts. It was logical they'd have access to weapons. Breckenridge's reaction confirmed my guess. You mean you didn't actually have the gun? Cramer has the gun, but we don't yet have ballistics confirmation. I simply assumed Breckenridge would assume we had it. He did. Therefore my bluff succeeded. I laughed. You're a devious man. I am an effective man. There is a difference. He rang for Fritz. Beer, please. 2 bottles. I've earned them. That evening, as the sun set over New York, we gathered in the office. Me, Wolfe, and Fritz. The dogs had settled into their usual spots. The crisis over, peace restored. Wolfe drank his beer and read his book. I typed up my notes. Fritz prepared dinner, beef stew with wild mushrooms and red wine, because nothing says justice served like really good stew. Later, Lon Cohen from the Gazette called. This Breckenridge story is going to be huge. My editor wants an exclusive interview with Wolfe. No interviews. Come on, Archie. No interviews, no photographs, no public appearances. Wolfe solved the case. That's all you need to know. The public deserves competent detective work and honest reporting. Provide the second, and Wolfe will continue providing the first. I hung up. Wolfe looked up from his book. Satisfactory? Extremely. He smiled, a rare, genuine smile, and returned to reading. Outside, New York continued its endless hustle, but in the brownstone on West 35th Street, peace reigned. The orchids grew undisturbed. The beer flowed. The dogs slept by the fire. And Nero Wolfe, the brilliant, cantankerous, utterly inimitable genius of detection, had once again proven that justice, properly pursued, will always triumph over corruption. Even if that justice comes wrapped in smoke, sealed with blood, and delivered in a box of Byzantine cigarettes. Sunday afternoon. The brownstone was quiet, the kind of satisfied quiet that follows a case well solved. I was in the office updating the case files when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Claudine Reeve, looking considerably better than the last time I'd seen her. She was wearing a clean suit, her hand properly bandaged, and she had color in her cheeks again. Miss Reeve, come in. She entered, glanced around the hall with interest, taking in the bulletproof mirror, the solid door, the understated elegance Fritz maintained. Caesar came to greet her, tail wagging gently. She scratched his ears. I came to thank Mr. Wolfe. Is he available? He's in the plant rooms until 4, but I can take you up. We rode the elevator to the roof. The plant rooms were Wolfe's sanctuary, 10,000 orchids in 4 climate-controlled rooms, each more spectacular than the last. Theodore, Wolfe's orchid nurse, nodded to us and pointed to the far room. Wolfe was examining a oncidium with the concentration of a surgeon. He looked up when we entered. Miss Reeve. Mr. Wolfe, I wanted to thank you. Inspector Cramer says the case is solid. Breckenridge is cooperating fully. The DA expects convictions all around. Satisfactory. I also wanted you to know, I'm leaving New York. Too many memories here. I have family in Montreal. I'm going home. A wise choice. She hesitated. I brought something. She pulled out a small package, the same cream-colored box that had started everything. The last of the Byzantine cigarettes, 20 in the original box. I saved them before the fire. I don't know what I thought, but you should have them, as evidence or a souvenir or whatever you want. Wolfe looked at the box with distaste. I do not smoke. Neither do I. But they're beautiful, aren't they? All that craftsmanship, all those years of tradition, and now they're gone forever. Not forever, merely dormant. Crafts can be revived if someone cares enough. He paused. Keep them, Miss Reeve, or donate them to a museum. They are part of history now. Your history and the city's. They deserve preservation. She clutched the box. Thank you. Thank you for your courage. Without your evidence, Breckenridge would have continued killing with impunity. After she left, I returned to the office. Wolfe came down at 4, settled into his chair, and rang for beer. That was kind, I said, telling her to keep the cigarettes. It was practical. I have no use for tobacco products. Still kind. He grunted. The case is closed. The criminals are imprisoned. Justice prevails. Why do you persist in analyzing motives? Because I know you. You could have kept those cigarettes as a trophy. You have a whole shelf of case souvenirs, but you gave them back because you understood what they meant to her. A connection to a world she'd lost. A reminder of why she'd risked everything. You are becoming maudlin in your old age. I'm 34. Precisely. Old. Fritz brought beer, and we sat in comfortable silence. Outside, the Sunday afternoon traffic hummed. The dogs, sensing no immediate threats, had scattered to their favorite napping spots. Peace had returned. After a while, Wolfe said, "The Breckenridge case exemplifies a troubling pattern. Wealth leads to impunity, impunity to criminality, criminality to violence. The cycle continues until someone breaks it. That's what we do, break cycles." Indeed, although the breaking often requires more effort than I prefer, you loved this case. I tolerated it. There is a difference. Sure there is. I finished typing and filed the reports. So what's next? Next I read my book, drink my beer, and contemplate my orchids. You may do whatever you wish, so long as it is quiet and does not involve interrupting me. I might go see a movie. Excellent. Go. I went. But first I checked all the locks, armed the security system, and made sure all 5 dogs had water and treats. Because that's what you do when you work for Nero Wolfe. You handle the details, protect the fortress, and let the genius do his thinking. When I came back that evening, Wolfe was still in the office, reading. The beer bottles were empty. The orchid records were updated. The world was back in its proper order. "Good movie?" he asked without looking up. "Not bad. Western. Implausible genre. Most detective stories are implausible. Not mine." I laughed. "No, not yours." And that was that. The case of the Byzantine cigarette factory was closed, filed away with all the others we'd solved over the years. Kellerman's killers were behind bars. The smuggling ring was broken. Claudine was safe in Montreal. Justice had prevailed. And in the brownstone fortress on West 35th Street, life went on as it always had. Routines maintained, orchids tended, beer consumed, and the occasional murder investigated when circumstances required, which, knowing our luck, would be sometime next month. But that's a story for another day. What smoke conceals, attention reveals.